Hi, this is Jeff Bell at For Whom J Bell Tolls on Twitter, and you're listening to the Dynasty Hot Seat.
Yes, hello everybody, and welcome back once again to another episode of the Dynasty Hot Seat. It's the only Dynasty show out there that is a certified inferno, and today we are once again blessed with another amazing guest. We got Jeff Bell sitting next to me right over here. You can find him over at the number four, For Whom J Bell Tolls on Twitter, and he does loads of stuff. He's doing loads of work for like Football Guys, and he's doing stuff for the Denver Royale as well. Super busy guy, got so much knowledge to share with us about Dynasty Fantasy Football. And Jeff, just wanted to say thank you so much for coming onto the show to talk some football with me.
Absolutely. I just want to say thank you for inviting me. You reached out a while ago, and I'm so happy that we were able to find some time to fit it in the schedule between time zones and life obligations. Things can be a little bit complicated, but I'm absolutely thrilled to be here and happy to talk Dynasty anytime I possibly can. I'm the Dynasty lead over at Football Guys, so that's right in my wheelhouse and my favorite thing to talk about.
Awesome, yeah, and I'm sure everyone listening can't wait, to get stuck right into section number one of the show, the Art of War, which is, just your hints and tips that you got for Dynasty players out there, young and old, or anything in between. So Jeff, what do you got for us in terms of hints and tips for Dynasty players out there?
Biggest thing, be active. Be an active owner, manager in your leagues. And I cannot emphasize that enough, because if you're stepping into the Dynasty world, you're leaving behind that redraft world a little bit and there's a little bit less set it and forget it lineups. And I think that we can get complacent because, as you look at the roster size, it can be difficult to see value plays if you're playing in deeper Dynasty leagues and moves, and continue to turn that back end of that roster. Be active there and continue to work to consolidate. And that's one of my guiding principles in Dynasty, and just how I play fantasy in general, is continue to consolidate. Move 2 or 3 pieces up into one bigger piece, or do those moves that you possibly can. Move into draft picks, or move whatever it might be. Try to capitalize on those small value windows. And I think that's easier said than done, because we're all kind of plugged in and we all kind of recognize that maybe this tight end's on a hot streak right now, and we can think and we can give that out there that you'll get value for him. But at the same time, everybody's hearing that advice. And so sometimes maybe it's better. We might say a guy has a late first round value right now, or a second round value right now. And maybe we know that there's small value windows, and like a guy like Robert Tonyan 2 years ago had a great value window, but everybody recognized that, and so it made it hard to move off. So sometimes look at maybe moving for a third round pick instead of that second round pick, because you're still getting that future value, you're still capitalizing, and maybe you're losing the trade in the moment, but you're continuing to accrue value and continuing to accrue pieces on that Dynasty roster. And I'm really big on trading for picks. I'm a Devy guy at heart, so I love college football. I'm always looking at the rookies, and even if you don't play Devy, check it out, because that gives you a value guide on where to value those picks. But again, draft picks are fluid and draft picks are currency. And so to move temporary pieces into draft picks, you might get a third round pick for a guy that everybody says is worth a second round pick. But at the same time, now you've got a third round pick that the next time that comes up, you can use that third round pick and the next value window for a second round pick. And instead of a team saying, I'm moving, I don't want to give up my straight second for that, all of a sudden, okay, well, I'm moving back to the third and I'm getting that guy. And then you've got that second round pick, and you can move that into a first round pick. And one of the things that I always love to say is that seconds can become firsts. And so I think that's playing a year out, playing 2 years out, getting those values, and then it gives you an entry point to step that up and to work that up within the draft. And then being able to pay attention to college, being able to pay attention to Devi, know those tiers ahead of time, and know those tiers really in March or April, depending on when your rookie draft is going to be, can allow you to make those consolidation moves, can allow you to move within tiers before a lot of your league gets plugged in. And that's where you really see value. And I think that we all get on the clock and we all want to say, well, I want to move back because I believe that's the smart thing to do to accrue value. But that's always easier said than done, usually in leagues. And so to be proactive about that moves and do those before really people have crystallized the value on those.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. And I love the use of the word consolidation there. It's like, don't just pay attention like to the top end of your roster. Like keep moving those pieces around, keep getting like the top sort of get the bottom sort of get every single piece that you can and pay attention. A bit of advice that we've had a couple of times in the show is, don't be that guy in the comments that goes, oh, I would have given you more than that, or I would have done that. It's like, you didn't. Like, man, you gotta get up early. You gotta catch these things whenever they're hot. And yeah, I think that's really good. Just be active, get as much done as you can and try and, get those kind of snippets of news, before for other people, like go listen to the football guys. They know what they're talking about, right? They'll help you.
That's
out.
Right.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So love that as a first tip, Jeff. So what else you got for us?
With inside that, I would say the way I look at it is, I don't know. I kind of have, it's hard to explain it, but I have players that matter and players that don't really in my mind. And so like I kind of operate with that mindset. And when I'm building rosters, I'm really targeting the quarterback position, the wide receiver positions, and locking those down with players that matter. Because I think that one of the mistakes that people make in Dynasty is going too deep on your wide receivers on your roster and having these guys that it's easy. I think sometimes it's very easy to see the receiver that, oh, well, he's at least putting up points, so I should have him on my roster. But how often are you going to play that guy versus having a running back that can step in and spike value? And I think that that's one of the biggest mistakes that players that are new to Dynasty take. Is I don't really, when I build a Dynasty roster, I don't really want my receivers to be deeper than maybe like 6 or 7 guys. And I want to fill that bench up with running backs, because while that running back might not be getting points right now, if he's third on the depth chart, that really means he's one bad thing away from being second on the depth chart. And if he ever extends to top on the depth chart, then you can plug him into your lineup. And so I think that that's one of the biggest things that people make mistakes on playing. They see a guy that they say, well, at least he's scoring points at wide receiver. And so, but it's like 8 points. What's 8 points going to get you? Versus, being able to start receivers that matter, being able to consolidate into those receiver positions and feeling comfortable with that depth through your wide receivers and through your flex positions with wide receivers, and then spike into value at running back.
Yeah, I really like that, especially, there is certainly like a cut-off point, and I don't know why, but the second you said that, one player really sprang to mind. I don't, you might not agree, but I just thought, someone like Michael Gallup, right? Who's like a good player. He will get you like 8 points, 9 points. But are you ever really going to start him? Probably not. And you might rather that extra running back in who has more of a chance of getting that positional play. Running backs are going to get injured more than wide receivers. So there's much more of a chance that running back is going to get a big play rather than, CeeDee Lamb getting injured and, Dalton Schultz getting injured and then Michael Gallup's the guy. There's more of a chance that that flyer at running back is going to get you those points ahead of, Michael Gallup. As good a player as he is, I'm sure he's a lovely human, but yeah, he's not going to get you those points that you need.
Yeah.
Yeah, really like that for advice, Jeff. And you got a third and final tip for us?
I would say continue to build younger. And I think that there's a lot of comments out there and belief of, well, I'm going to win now, or I'm in my dynasty league to win, and I want veteran players. And I think that people don't recognize and realize that how quickly players they score. It's not this type of thing where coaches are sitting a guy for 2 or 3 seasons before he's going to start to contribute. Rookies step in and contribute right away. Second-year players contribute right away. And so I think oftentimes, especially if you're in a startup, it's very easy to work within ADP and continue to grab young players within that ADP. And if you do that all the way through, then all of a sudden at the end, when the picture is complete, you're doing these little puzzle pieces. And if you're going young every single time, when it's complete, you've got an entirely young roster. And I think that there's a lot said about veterans and trying to win right now and not wasting your time and not playing for tomorrow. But I think the reality of it is you can win with a young roster. And I think that's one of the things that, it almost makes me laugh when I see that on Twitter, because it almost makes me feel like, okay, well, there's somebody in their league that's stuck on some older running backs that wants to change the conversation and get them off their roster, is kind of the way that I look at it whenever I see like a tweet come across like that, or something of like, you're trying to send some subliminal messages in your league because you've got some older guys that you want to get off of.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I love that as well. That's kind of like, that's sort of one of the big points about playing Dynasty, is you get to get these young guys on your team, right, and give them a shot and try them out. This isn't, a redraft league, so it is cool that you get all these young players in your team. And I like it sometimes, just being like, I'm going to go to this draft and I'm going to take the youngest team I can possibly get, and we're just going to go with it, and we're just going to see what happens. And I love that. My first Dynasty league, I did that, and I was just like, oh, so I get to keep these players? I'm just going to take all the young guys. And by fluke, it's ended up, quite good. I didn't know what I was doing, but it ended up quite good. So, it's nice to try that sometimes. And it's part of the fun of Dynasty, is getting those players.
And I think, too, what people don't realize is that as you're starting out that first year of your Dynasty League, one, you can be competitive with young players, but two, if you have one blip of a year, there's so much more value on having like the 101 versus the 109 or whatever it is. And so even just having that one slow year, and like this year last year you had Breece Hall that you could have added to your roster, or next year coming up, Bijan Robinson, everybody's already talking about him. And so, I tend to build my rosters, especially when I'm in a startup, I'll kind of go towards that zero RB approach, because I think you can get value guys that come in as backups that you can play week to week if you've got the stomach for it. But the other thing too, if you've done that all the way through, if you've loaded in young quarterbacks, if you've loaded in young wide receivers, and you do have that 1 year starting out where you're not very good, all of a sudden you're taking that hot rookie running back, you're plugging that guy right in there, you're solidifying one of those running back positions, and you're essentially adding an extra first or second round pick from the startup versus somebody that maybe they say, well, I'm going to go out and win and right away. And all of a sudden, they're adding more like a 8th or 9th round pick after that first year. And if they don't win right away, then they're stuck. And I think that's the biggest thing I think there's value to be realized, and I think that we are probably too ageist in the Dynasty community when it comes to trades and not wanting to step into veteran players. It's tough because there's that balance of like, well, I used a 4th round startup pick on Austin Eckler, so I should think he should be worth this. And like, well, that's fine, but you're not operating within a trade calculator in your league. You're operating within a mini economy in your league, and what your league says his value is what his value really is. And I think that's one of the biggest things that people struggle with in Dynasty, because nobody wants to lose a trade and nobody wants to lose value, but you need to, it's economics. You need to operate within the market that you operate within. And so if everybody in your startup fades a player, that doesn't suddenly make him a value. That makes him a player that your entire league has spoken and they don't have interest in. And so I think that's one of the things that people struggle to understand, that every single league is its own ecosystem, own environmental economic system, that you need to operate and understand those values within your league and not strictly adhere to what the values might say on a website. But at the same time, I understand. And it's one of those things too. So like I had Christian McCaffrey the summer of 2020 on a team that I was kind of rebuilding. And I did a deal, and it was one of those that like, this was the best offer I could get. And I felt like I needed to move him, and I wasn't quite sure if I won the deal or not. And I wasn't super concerned about that, but like I traded him for Deebo Samuel at the time, and then Deebo had like an injury-ridden year, and then I got a first round pick for him, and I got like Jerry Jeudy, and this was when Christian McCaffrey was like the 102, and it was one of those
Christian McCaffrey.
Yes, and it was one of those that immediately it felt like a loss of trade. And for most of of that 2020 year, when Deebo Samuel was injured and Jerry Jeudy wasn't really doing much as a rookie, it felt like you lost it. Well, lo and behold, the next year, now Deebo Samuel's more valuable than Christian McCaffrey
Yeah.
is in a lot of leagues. I got a first round pick that I ended up flipping that and another minor asset for DK Metcalf, and all of a sudden, and I won the league the second year. Like I went from rebuilding to winning the league the next year, and I think that
Wow.
that's something too that rebuilds should be short and quick. And if you're not doing it right, then you just have a bad team.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that as well. Like, if you're going to rebuild it, like, it's so much harder to rebuild if you think, right, in 4 years I'll be ready. It's like, you don't know
Yeah.
that really. Like, do
No.
you really know that? Like, I don't think you do. Like, yeah, you're right. You want to have a shorter window for your rebuild. Get all those pieces that you want all together as quickly as possible. So yeah, I like that as a tip as well. Like a little bonus tip at the end there about rebuilds. And I heard you did mention, like you tend to fade running back in a startup draft, tend to go a bit younger. Well, we're just about to find out in part number 2 as we put you fully in the hot seat, Jeff, for our mock draft. So let's see if we can pull it up there to the stream. And here we go. We got Sleeper loaded up here. It's our super flex, 12 team, 18 round mock draft. And the first thing I'm going to ask you, Jeff, is sort of the first thing that I've asked every other guest in the show. In an ideal world, if you got to choose what position you would start from in a startup draft, what position would you pick, and why would you pick it?
I would pick the 101 in a startup because I think you're starting with the most capital possible. You're starting with the most valuable pick, and then you can kind of, if you have the option to choose, take the 101 because then you can always move to maybe you think, well, I like the 7 slot better, but you take the 101 and you can move down to the 7 slot and pick up value. Don't voluntarily go at a lower level. Always take the 101 if available. And you can see behind me, I'm a Bills fan, and that guy sitting at the 101 is my guy. And I've got him on a good amount of rosters because, I was able to load up when he was like a 3rd round pick a couple of years back. So that is a nice pick sitting there at the 101. But if I'm given my choice, that's the pick I'm going to take.
Nice. So let's lock in position 1-1, and then we're taking your guy Josh Allen then, will we?
I think that's a pretty safe move that I would take Josh Allen there. But
Love
even
it.
if you're not, if you're not married to Josh, and I think that there's valid arguments to be made that if you're going to play the value and you have the 101 and you're able to move back to the 103 or something like that, you do it. And the other thing I like to do too is out of Superflex, assuming I draw a high draft slot like above the top 6, I like to get aggressive with my 2nd and 3rd round picks and move up to get 2 of the elite quarterbacks and I think that as long as you're getting like a 4th, 5th, 6th back, like I like to use that because I think that there's a real value drop in the 2nd and 3rd round there. And so to proactively do it and you lock in 2 young quarterbacks that solve your super flex problems moving forward, and you can still get value as long as don't do 2-for-1 trades. And I never, ever do a 2-for-1 trade in a startup because then you're really sacrificing that value. But I think that you can get a lot out of that.
Absolutely agree. Like you just, getting those two quarterbacks like you talked about is just a complete game changer, especially in Superflex. Like it's the hardest position to get. There aren't that many. And if you have 2 locked up, then you can then go and hit those other positions hard as well. So I love that. And would that even be something you would want to do, like picking from the 1-1? Would you even want to like trade up back into the first again? Would you go that extreme or definitely.
So I call it, I everybody that plays with me, they joke around. I have a patented move I call it the J Bell Gambit. And I trade I like to trade my 2nd and my 3rd round. I'll throw that out there immediately when we start. As long as I know I'm locked into getting 1 quarterback on my 1st, I'll trade my 2nd and 3rd round pick for another 1st in that range. And I'll usually start with the 4th back, but I'll anywhere between the 4th and the 6th round, as long as I'm getting one of those back. That's the move I love to do because there's really not that 3rd round pick. There's not a massive value difference between that and like the 5th round. And I think that perceptually people think that there are, but in reality, there's really not.
Yeah. And even if you look now, like I'm just looking at these quarterbacks. Like Jalen Hurts is there still. Like the main hitters are gone. You know, all of the
Yeah.
people there. You got Aaron Rodgers and Matthew Stafford, slightly older, but like those big locked in, secure people like Allen Mahomes and Herbert and Burrow and Murray, they're all gone by this stage. So I really like that. I like the name as well. The JBL Gamba. I really like that. Sort of we had Murphy's leading our Hall of Flame chart here. He once described redraft as being checkers and dynasty being chess. So I really like that you got your JBL Gambit worked into that as well. It's a really great name.
Thank you very much. All right, so
So
we're on the
we're
clock
back on
here.
here, yeah.
Okay. All right. So all right, what are my wide receiver options?
Let's have a little look and see. You got your guy Debo we just talked about. He's sitting up there, and Devontae Adams and Jalen Waddle still sitting up there. Jalen Waddle going ahead of Tyreek Hill still, interestingly, in ADP.
Yeah. Yeah. So we've got Pitts and Mark Andrews off the board there. So so I'm not touching tight end. I'm not touching a Kittle or a Kelsey at this range. We're definitely taking a quarterback here. And so I'm looking at two names right now would be Jalen Hurts and Justin Fields are the two names that I'm looking at. And there are both obviously very real questions about both of those guys. Ideally, what I would probably want to do if I'm not able to move up in this range, I would be looking to see if anybody can move back and still like I'd love to drop this one into like the mid third and still be able to walk out with a guy like Hurts or Fields or even I'm not as big on Trevor Lawrence, but that's another young guy that obviously people are high on. But where the value sits right now, that's what I would ideally like to do. But being on the clock here with no offers to move back, I am going to go with Justin Fields because I just believe long term in the talent over him versus Jalen Hurts, and I think that I don't know. I get a little bit risky with that one, and I look at draft capital, and I just look at position to succeed. And Justin Fields is my guy, so I'm working on a spotlight for him for FootballGuys.com, and I know that his value has dropped a little bit more into that third round range, where early offseason last year he was kind of back up into that almost the end of that first round. But I talked about earlier about the value that you could have got on Josh Allen a couple years back as a third round pick. And I think that Fields is kind of sitting right in that range where that's a guy that I think that even if Jalen Hurts plays passively, I think we've kind of seen what Jalen Hurts has. And I think he's kind of going to maintain this range because there's always going to be those questions about, are the Eagles going to move on from him unless the guy goes out and wins the Super Bowl? Whereas if Justin Fields reaches his top end, he's in that conversation to be a top 5 overall super flex asset.
Yeah, he's got all the tools available to be a star, and you just got to hope that the team around him sort of helps him out a little bit more than they did last year. He looked at stages last year like a little bit lost because there just wasn't like I felt for the guys. Like what do you want him to do? Like he can't like just run through the whole team himself every time. Like so hopefully his surrounding cast will help him out a bit more this year.
Yeah, and that coaching situation was horrendous last year, and he was put in a very bad position.
Yeah, so let's hope he takes another big step forward this year. So we'll get him locked in, and the benefit of picking up one is that we get 2 picks sort of at the start of the end of the second and the start of the third. And are you ever tempted here to sort of triple tap quarterback, or is that something that you're not interested in?
I would rather. My concern with that is I've done it, and it always just it leaves you feeling a guy short when you kind of do that, and then so like if that's really the direction you'd want to go, I would be exploring a trade before I would want somebody to step in and trade for him right now on the quarterback value. I think because that would be where I would be leaning before I would just. And I think there's something to it. Will really have to know your league there, and you'd have to know are people actively trading, and the thing of it is. You'd have to be able to know that you're going to get an aggressive offer. Maybe like looking at this draft, the way this draft played out, everybody after 7, other than team number 10, all went other positions. And so to grab Hurts there, like I think that I would already have to be having a conversation with somebody in that range. And then you really start to hold their feet to the fire and know that that's going to be their guy that they really want. Because once you take him, the value it's like a new car driving off a lot sometimes, and it's And I think that some people have the mindset of like, well, I'm going to take him and now I control him and now you have to come for him. But I think that there's something to be, I don't know. It's draft picks are funny because I think they're
Yeah.
easier to move before the names are assigned. But then at the same time, it's almost, that option of like, okay, well, now Hurts is there. Now you have to really find somebody that loves Hurts.
Which is hard to do sometimes as well. He's like sort of
Yeah.
splits the room quite heavily sometimes.
Well, in this would be an instance where he talked about if your league is saying something about a player, you kind of have to listen to him. And the way that quarterbacks have been faded in this league, if this were a real league, I would have to be saying, well, everybody in the back half kind of devalues quarterback because they were willing to grab two position players before they touched the quarterback position. So you kind of have to accept that reality. But in this position, so ordinarily, I would love to go that zero RB approach that I talked about, but I think my pivot off that would be anchor running back and grabbing one guy that I feel comfortable about being able to slot in, and seeing that on the board here, I'm going to grab Breece Hall, and because I just think there's a difference between him and the wide receivers that are really available right now, and I think the wide receivers that are available right now are a little bit of a step down.
Yeah, I think Breece Hall as well is, he's been creeping up and up and up and up and up, I've seen as well. So, he's going at the start of the third now. But I think, if he lives up to, anywhere close to the hype that he's got, this time next year, he's not going to be there at the start of the third.
No, he's going to be, he's already, I've seen him going in the second regularly now. And so it kind of, and it would surprise me to see like Austin Eckler taken ahead of him. And I've got him even number 4 in my running back rankings in Dynasty right now. And even then that feels like that could easily spike. He could be number 2, like here, if he has a hot September, he's number 2. And cause we're kind of looking for who's going to be that number 2.
Yeah, absolutely. So I love that pick as Breece Hall joins Josh Allen and Justin Fields on our team. And Jalen Hurts did go there. He went to team number 3. He's got Herbert, Brown, and Hurts went to the stack with Brown and Hurts. Interesting. And do you think with position 1-1, what do you think about having the long wait on the way back and things like, even I know some leagues now are doing third round reversals. Do you have any sort of feelings about those, or are you kind of happy with whatever settings people decide to go with?
I like the third round reversal, but I feel like that's almost more of a redraft setting than a dynasty setting, just because the ability to move around. And that's one of the things too, that is a good, healthy league. I love to get in a league that's moving around in the startup. And I think sometimes those leagues, it's funny because I do a lot of like analyst leagues, and it kind of seems like the analyst leagues will be less likely to move around, whereas if you get into a league with more of a mix or more of fans involved in that, then you'll see a lot more movement. And as long as I don't have that, it's very hard for me to pass on my guy Josh Allen at the 101. But like, as long as I don't, I love to move around early and try to get that going, because I think that that's one of the things too that you can see in a league, that if you're aggressive and moving and you get those trades done, then other people see that, and then that opens up the willingness, and then it's kind of almost like greasing the wheels of because if you're in a league that's trading a lot, that's when you can really get a lot of value out of it. And especially I love to look at it as tiers and trying to tier out players and operating within those and trying to go for pockets and moving back if I feel like there's 5 or 6 guys on the board, or moving up if I see that one guy that I really want to get.
Yeah, and it's fighting that value, and you almost want to like hit the bottom of those tiers, right? And then get that extra plus. So you get that your tier 2 guy, and then you get plus on top of that. That's the dream.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah, we'll love it. And we're back on the board now again. We got Josh Allen, we got Fields, we got Hall locked in, and now we're sitting pick number 4, back end of the 4th round. Are you want me to look at any position in particular, or is there something?
Yeah, I want to look at wide receiver. I'd like to see that.
So you got DJ Moore, Michael Pittman, and Treylon Burks sitting up at the top. Terry McLaurin, a couple of rumblings about him not being too happy. I think he missed one of his training camp days, but I'm not too sure what's going on with him.
So we're at the back end of the 4th round. Is that Garrett Wilson there too?
That is Garrett Wilson, and then Jerry Jeudy just beneath him too.
Okay. And then what's available at quarterback?
Let's have a little look. We got Aaron Rodgers, Derek Carr. You got Tua, Mac Jones, and Zach Wilson sitting there.
Okay. Yeah, because this would be an area that maybe I would consider going into that, dipping into quarterback again. Because, and again, like I love to go young, and so I would be torn here because I'd be eyeing Tua and saying, well, okay, now with Tua, I'm doubling down with him in Fields. And best case scenario, I've got 3 young stud quarterbacks. Worst case scenario, worst case scenario, you got nothing. But worst case scenario, you've at least got it covered if one of the two guys busts. But for the way, and then this is the other thing, would be reading how this draft is going. And I see that right now quarterbacks are being faded in this draft. And I think that's surprising the value on the board. But at the same time, I would feel comfortable if a guy like Zach Wilson were to come back around or Mac Jones comes back around, then you're kind of playing the same bet, but you're still getting a top wide receivers. And so I go back to wide receiver here.
Yep.
And I would probably grab Michael Pittman here. And I would probably go Garrett Wilson here over DJ Moore, but I don't know there's a wrong choice there. But I'm really buying into the youth there because DJ Moore is deceptively older than people realize, I think. And, that Carolina quarterback position is not ideal. And so I think DJ Moore he's either 25 or 26. And so I think that's one of those things that I believe he's 26, actually.
25 still.
Yeah, he's going to turn 26 this year. Yeah. So that's one of those that all of a sudden you've got a 26-year-old wide receiver. And, if we go another year or two and they don't have that quarterback solved, then he's a 28-year-old wide receiver without a quarterback.
Yeah.
So that's kind of one of those. But I'll go Michael Pittman here, and I'll go Garrett Wilson here.
Nice. Let's get them locked in. Michael Pittman. I think he's going to have a huge year coming up with Matt Ryan, who he's already talking about being the best quarterback he's ever played with, which is great. And Garrett Wilson was my number 1 receiver pre-draft. I don't often like changing too much of that depending on landing spot. So I'm still a big believer in Garrett Wilson. And it feels so weird to like so many of the Jets players, but they're building something, right?
They really are. Yeah, and it's really hard to ignore what they're building.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that's our second Jets player, Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall locked in. So yeah, you got some dynasty darlings in that team. So I love it.
Yeah, I've been running into that because I love Breece Hall and I love Garrett Wilson and I like Elijah Moore too. But it's one of those that's just where the value is sitting right now.
Yeah, right, and so another guy still there as well. Zach Wilson still sitting there also from the Jets. Do you ever get worried then actually building a team? You're like, man, I just have too many players from this team. I can't take another one.
Situations change. So, and I think that's one of the things that this offseason has taught us is that situations can change faster than what you realize. I mean, 12 months ago, who was calling Tyreek Hill not being a Chief or Devontae Adams not being a Packer? And if there's anything, even like, it was shocking, AJ Brown not being a Titan. Like we didn't really see that coming, or Hollywood Brown not being a Raven. And so that's the thing where the situations can change, and you're really just betting on that talent there right now. I think those young players, but we're back on the clock, and now who's all the quarterback options available? Because this is where I'd really start to, because I'm seeing it's hard for me to read kind of, but
you got Zach Wilson is sitting there at the top, and then Tom Brady and Kirk Cousins sitting there too. I can also see Kenny Pickett, Ryan Tannehill, and Jameis Winston sitting there too.
We're building the jet stack, so like let's just grab the young quarterback Zach Wilson. We're kind of already making that bet, and so building correlation within your team. And that's where like it's two edges of the coin of you've got too many players, but at the same time you're building that correlation. And if the Jets get it figured out and become like I joked earlier this offseason, they've become like the discount Bengals because there's all those that youth at the quarterback and the wide receiver position, and you could be feeling very differently about the Jets offense in a year.
Yeah, absolutely. No one's out there complaining that they have too many Bengals players for sure. So it might be the same with the Jets. Yeah, I love that. So let's get Zach Wilson locked in, and I'll show you who else is available there as well.
Yeah.
Now. So we got our quarterback locked in. Jerry Jeudy sitting up at the top there. James Conner, Jameson Williams, Hollywood Brown, and Elijah Mitchell are sitting up at the top there. But I can change the positions if you need.
So this is this would be a debate in my mind of like, are you going to go with Jameson Williams or are you going to go with Hollywood Brown? Because you're really looking at two different production windows. But the way that we are building this team right now, we are, and again, talking about building in that youth. And so that's where I would go Jameson Williams on the bet that his talent is higher and he just fits in that window we've got Garrett Wilson in that window. We got Zach Wilson in that window, Breece Hall. We're a very young team. And so I'm still with the available pivot there on a young player that I think could get you pretty equal production. Continue to go with that youth.
Yeah, Jameis Williams, I really like. And I know, obviously people are worried about his quarterback situation, but, it's either going to go two ways. It's either going to go, his quarterback situation does not get better this year, and it does get better next year because they'll have a high pick, or it does get better this year, and then you have nothing to worry about anyway. So I don't think it's too much of a big deal.
Yeah, darn, I didn't realize Bateman was still available. I might have gone in that direction.
Yeah, Bateman was just further down on the list, and unfortunately missed out on him. But there's still, in back end of the 8th round, 9th round, there's still, a lot of talent. It starts to dip after 10, 11, then it gets a bit dicey.
Yeah,
but I think we got a lot of talent still here. Are you wanting to see any position in particular?
Probably the wide receiver position.
Let's have a little look, see who we got. We got Cortland Sutton, Brandon Ayuk, DeAndre Hopkins, Michael Thomas. I know you're looking for young guys. Let's see any young guys. George Pickens is the next young guy up. Jahan Dotson, who's great as well, sitting there.
Here's I probably double tap. I probably go Sutton and Brandon Ayuk.
Nice. I like Cortland Sutton. Obviously now got a huge upgrade in his quarterback play. You want me to lock those two in just before I do that, just to make sure?
Yeah, because I'd see what's available. It looks like Dawson Knox is the best tight end available, and then I don't know what running backs are available.
So Dawson Knox, yeah, he's still up there at tight end. He's available. Mike Gesicki,
yeah, because I love Knox, but I can't take him over these wide receivers. I feel like
yeah, and then running back, you got running backs. This is the waistline
really
a little bit. Yeah, so
definitely Ayuk and Cortland Sutton here.
Love it. Let's get those two locked in. And, you talked about it earlier. You want to get like those higher end wide receivers right now. And then you don't want to worry about getting those sort of roster fillers later on, like, per Michael Gallup, who was signaled earlier. We don't want to get too many of those guys on our team.
That's right.
So let's see who falls to us now. And I'll flick on all players as well. And we'll see who comes round to us in round number 10 with Jameis Winston and Davis Mills sitting up at the top, but it's still pretty good at quarterback as well. Christian Kirk there, and Michael Carter still sitting up there as well. I know you own Breece Hall. Do you have any interest in getting Michael Carter as well? Or
I really don't have interest in Carter. I don't know that I view him as. I just don't know that I see standalone value there, and taking a handcuff this early still kind of feels a little bit early.
Yeah, the 10th round is very early, right?
Yeah, and okay, so we've got Jameis, we've got Davis Mills, we've got what wide receivers are available?
Let's have a look. Christian Kirk's there, Michael Gallup is there, Tyler Lockett, Cordero Patterson, I suppose wide receiver, right? Adam Thielen, and some younger guys, David Bell, Alec Pierce, John Mechie, Rondale Moore still there as well, and Calvin Ridley, a bit more of a risk.
What do we have at tight end? Because I think we were looking at Cole Kmet there.
Cole Kmet is still there. Yeah, Zach Ertz, very sneaky, productive. Zach Ertz still did a great job last year on two teams. He's still doing well.
If I'm building this team, I'm probably going with Christian Kirk because I think that he's still a young enough wide receiver, but I really think he's got a great opportunity to increase his value in that Jacksonville offense. The way they paid him, I think he fits Trevor Lawrence's game, and that makes me feel very, very good about our wide receiver position now in this team.
Yeah.
And then I probably would go back to quarterback here, and I would either look at Jameis or Davis Mills, and this is where quarterbacks are never cheaper than in the draft. And so who are Matt Ryan and Malik Willis? Yeah, I would probably go with Jameis here. I'm pretty high on Jameis, and there's just a lot of value to be had there.
Yeah, I think starting quarterback in the 10th round is always really, really good. And looking at even guys like Ryan Tannehill went before there, like Jameis Winston, Ryan Tannehill, like Tannehill's under pressure as well. Jameis Winston, the Saints don't really have, too much draft capital from what I know to really replace him. And, he
Yeah.
looked pretty good last year. So I like Jameis Winston as well. So we're locking in Jameis Winston and Christian Kirk.
Yep. Those would be my picks.
Awesome. So let's get Jameis in. We'll flick over to wide receiver. We'll get Christian Kirk, who's, getting paid serious money to be over in Jacksonville. So they got to use him, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
How's my roster looking now? Like,
Let's have a flick over that. I was just about to say, yeah, we got Josh Allen sitting there. We got Breece Hall, our only running back so far. Then we got Michael Pittman, Garrett Wilson, Jameson Williams sitting in at wide receivers with Cortland Sutton and Brandon Ayuk in our flex. You got Justin Fields, Zach Wilson, Jameis Winston as other quarterbacks there, and Christian Kirk too. And we're in the 12th round.
So I would probably take I don't know. The guy that is like a bug zapper for me in this range, and I just can't avoid him. I just the lights are very bright. Is Calvin Ridley, because I think that's a guy that he comes back and he's going to be much higher value. I saw him in the available wide receivers, and so this is where I talked about having patience that first year, because if you take Ridley here, obviously you're not getting any production there, but then at the same time, and Jameson Williams is missing a portion of the year, and we have so much youth in this roster that as these wide receivers grow and progress, if we are bad this year, then all of a sudden maybe we're taking Bijan Robinson at the 101 and sliding him into that second running back spot, and then you've got the best team in the league.
Yeah, can you imagine Breece Hall and Bijan Robinson on the same team?
Yeah, and then
I'm Josh Allen.
Yeah, you punt a year with Ridley. You're plugging Ridley back in there. You've got another year of development on all these young wide receivers, and that's where you really can get value through that roster.
Yeah, absolutely. So have you talk yourself into Calvin Ridley here? Then?
Yeah, I'll take Ridley there, and then what tight ends are available?
Let's see. I see Irv Smith Jr. is definitely there, and Hunter Henry there, David Njoku there as well. Who knows who's going to be throwing the ball next year? And then Jelani Woods and Evan Ingram and Tyler Higbee.
What running backs are available?
Let's have a check and see our running backs. So Ronald Jones over at Kansas City now. Zamir White in the third. Zamir White is an interesting one because I'm seeing him go for whatever reason in all of the like rookie startup drafts I'm doing. He's going like really late, like late third round.
Yeah.
In startup drafts, he seems to be going higher in startup drafts than what that would correlate to. I don't know why, but I'm just seeing a bit of a trend there.
I swear, I see the same type of things, and it does kind of seem like, rookies. I don't know. I still kind of contend that when you've got placeholders are valued different than the actual rookie names sometimes in drafts too, for some odd reason. But at tight end, I would probably go ahead and take. This is where I would look at the rest of the league and see if there's open tight end positions through the league. And like, if I felt comfortable that David Njoku would come back to me, I'd feel a little bit more comfortable waiting on tight end. Which it looks like there's, it looks like everybody's got tight end filled. And so this is where you're really starting to punt tight end. And so maybe let's go to that running back and let's grab one of these young running backs.
Yeah,
so Ronald Jones, Zamir White, Davis Price.
Brian Robinson as well. And then a guy I quite like there, Khalil Herbert, sneaking at the bottom.
That's the name that I was looking at. So I was looking at him or Stevenson. And I think we have a tendency on rookies you can get burnt by rookies. And so I love to, in startups, I love to go with those second year guys because it seems like rookies get overvalued in startups because it's that mystery box. He could be anything. He could even be the guy that's pretty good that's already played in the league for a year. And so I'll go ahead and take Khalil Herbert here, I think.
Yeah, I really like that. I think you're right. You can be burnt. Like, I'm just looking there, like, you got Khalil Herbert and you got like Brian Robinson. I mean, Brian Robinson wishes he could have a year as good as Khalil Herbert did last year, right? So I don't know why you would take him ahead of him. Like, so I like Khalil Herbert a lot.
Yeah, we've built that anchor running back in now, and I think there's a chance that Khalil Herbert has some standalone value, even with David Montgomery healthy. But we know that if something happens to David Montgomery, that Khalil Herbert's going to be a plug and go starter.
Yeah, I think he's a great young talent. So let's get Khalil Herbert locked in. And someone did take a tight end there. Irv Smith Jr. did go off the board, but and Hunter Henry. So hopefully not too many others go off the board. But tight end does have a lot of depth in it as well. Like you can get a pretty decent tight ends towards the back. And I think what you said earlier, you were like, who's gone? You were like, has Mark Andrews gone? Has Cal Pitts gone? It's like I'm not too interested for a while because they're
Yeah.
standalone, sort of. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's the biggest thing of like it. And I think that people have a tendency of like they want to fill those roster positions, but they don't. You're just losing value when you do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're back on here at round number 14 at the back end. And there's a stash of quarterbacks, which tends to happen on Sleeper for whatever reason. I've tried a few different settings. I can't seem to get it to fix. But these quarterbacks, what generally happens is they'll all stay, and then the 17th round they all go. And I can't fix it. I don't know if anyone
Okay.
listening has any tips, that would be great. But we've got a couple of other positions to have a look at as well. Is anyone in particular you want to have a look at?
Running back would be probably ideal. Running back and tight end is probably the range that we're looking at right now.
All right, let's have a look. We got Naheem Hines and Hassan Haskins and Kyron Williams, Marlon Mack, Pierre. We're in a bit of a wasteland at running back, I think.
It is.
At
Yeah,
the
there was
yeah.
some talent that fell off there. So like I would have loved to get Kenneth Gainwell like coming back to
Yeah.
me. And then what's available at tight end?
Let's have a look. Jelani Woods, Evan Ingram, Rob Gronkowski still there. Robert Tunyon still there as well. Brevin Jordan, a player that a lot of people come on the show, big fans of Brevin Jordan for whatever reason. And Greg Dulcich and Gerald Everett too.
Okay. So what are my wide receiver options?
Wide receiver, Kenny Golladay still there. Khalil Shakir, the rookie. LaVisca Chenault, Donovan Peoples-Jones, Tyquan Thornton. Jarvis Landry still there as well.
So probably what I'm doing at this point is I'm going to go back to tight end, and I'm going to take Evan Ingram here, and then I'll probably take Brevin Jordan. I'll double tap tight end, and I'll figure that I'm laying in a young tight end there, and I feel like Brevin Jordan is like the discount Irv Smith, and I feel like you're kind of getting the same thing there, just in a younger and healthier package. But I do think that Evan Ingram has a chance to really spike and be a very productive tight end here for the next couple of years.
Yeah, I'm a big, believer in Evan Ingram, and you can see. I actually only noticed last week. You can see my starred players. So, like, if anyone wants to sneak peek at who I actually like, you got Evan Ingram's definitely one of them, and Brevin Jordan as well. We'll get him locked in. We'll double tap tight end, and that's quite nice, isn't it? About having that, pick at either the 1 or the 12. You can just sort a position out just like that with your 2 picks.
Exactly. And I love to do that. I love to, if you're going to fade, like, I just don't understand taking some of these guys, a Tyler Higbee like that. Like, it just doesn't make much sense to me when you've got Ingram sitting there. And Brevin Jordan is a guy that I feel like is misvalued on Sleeper quite often.
Yeah, I think so as well. I think he's always, people always like him more than where he's sitting in. Well, hopefully you'd think as well the ADP will catch up then eventually. Here we are.
So you've given me the cheat code, I know already. So I'm going to take Desmond Ridder here because I know that these quarterbacks are going to go off. And again, quarterbacks have so much value in Superflex that if it works out, like this is a guy that is going to go in the 5th round next year that you're getting in the 17th round.
Yeah. Yeah,
and just probably for argument's sake, like I'll just go with Malik Willis and do the same thing there, and just say like we're just placing these bets because if one of these two hits, it's just there's not anything else that can compare on the value in this range.
No, we'll double tap here, and then we'll see everyone else flying off the board. I think that's generally what happens. And then we'll see what's left, and we'll be able to compare. Yeah, there it is.
There you go.
Yeah. I will be able to compare, what players are left where it's like, Odell Beckham, like still there, like players like that.
That's really
the
funny.
risk, the juice isn't worth the squeeze almost for those guys, whereas it is with, Ridder and Malik Willis.
Yeah, and then probably at this point, I'm just going to start to hammer running back like all the way through, probably with my next whole bunch of picks of like, you get in these drafts that are 27 rounds and just grab running backs. So what are the available options there?
we got, and this is our, it's a snapshot sort of at a draft. So this is our final pick of the draft, Jeff. But obviously, in reality, it would be going further on. You would just continue to hammer running back here.
Yeah, that's where I probably would go. You can get in there. Occasionally, you might see a wide receiver value that you like that is still
Yeah.
on the board, or a tight end that you want to revisit. But I'm going to go running back since this is the last round. Does that look like Snoop Connor on the top there?
Snoop Connor is sitting up there at the top with, Chris Carson, Dearness Johnson, and Ty Chandler there as well.
So I would because of the lack of depth that we have at running back in here, I would probably go Snoop Connor here, just on the off chance that if James Robinson's not able to come back and he's able to take over as that power complement in Jacksonville, that youth is there, and you're really just placing a bet on hitting a guy here.
Yeah, and then it's something that you would just sort of continue to do, as you went on further into the draft. So that is all of our picks done. So let's have a little review, Jeff, at how we've done. So we got Josh Allen as our 1-1, our first player off the board at quarterback. You got Breece Hall, you got Khalil Herbert, Michael Pittman Jr., Garrett Wilson, Jameson Williams, Evan Ingram. Then in the flexes, you got Cortland Sutton and Brandon Ayuk. You got a choice of your second quarterback with Justin Fields and Zach Williams, Jameis Winston. You've also got Desmond Ridder, Malik Willis sitting there at quarterback, so loads of depth. You got Christian Kirk, Calvin Ridley, Brevin Jordan, and then rounding everything off, you got Snoop Connor. How you feeling about that, Jeff?
That looks like a team I would draft. I mean,
nice.
That's really kind of what I'm looking to go for when I go into a draft. I talk about going youth all the way through and hammering youth, and really, it's really kind of that once I can get kind of through that 10th round or so, that I'll start to look at the veteran options that are available. Like I would love to have Gronk dropped another round and grab Gronk and then lock that in and feel really good about that tight end position for this year. But he went off, and I would have just deferred to the youth there. But again, like I talk about that first year, having some patience there. And so if you look at that team, if those young wide receivers hit, you got the quarterbacks that you've got a lot of value. You can be competitive right away. But at the same time, if it doesn't really work out, and that's the other thing too about kind of grabbing some of those vets, that if you're not getting those top end guys hitting right away, then all of a sudden you've got pieces that you can move off, you can pivot, and you can go. But if we get an early pick next year and we're adding Bijan Robinson to that team, or we're adding Jahmyr Gibbs, a good running back out of Alabama, a guy like that, then all of a sudden locking that into that second running back position, and you're feeling great about that roster.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. We sort of listened to you in section 1, your hints and tips and what you like to do, and then just be able to see that really come into play and go into progress there in that draft was really great to see. And Jeff, just wanted to say, thanks one more time for coming on to the show. And guys, if you enjoyed listening to this and watching this, I talked about it earlier. We got behind the Hall of Flame. That is for the best guests that have been on this show. If you're wondering, how does Jeff end up getting on that? All you got to do, go over to the YouTube channel. If you're not already, give the video a thumbs up. The more likes Jeff gets, the higher up the Hall of Flame he's going to go. At the minute, we got Kev, the Dynasty Goat. We got Jess Stein from Dynasty Nerds, and we got Murph from the 5-yard team sitting up in the top 3. Let's see if we can get Jeff in there.
Appreciate that very much. And thank you so much for reaching out and having me on. It's been a blast. And anytime we can talk Dynasty, I absolutely love it. So I'm thankful that we were able to get this time together.
Love it. And Jeff, just one more time, do you want to remind everyone where they can find you online as well?
Yeah, you can find me at Twitter for whom J Bell tolls. You can find me all my content going up on Football Guys. I've got player spotlights coming out soon for Breece Hall, for Austin Eckler, and for Tyreek Hill is the other one that I've finished, and I'm stepping into a Justin Fields one. So those are kind of early looking like my guys for the 2022 redraft season. So those kind of articles are geared more towards redraft with an eye towards Dynasty. But most of my content is, as I said, I'm the Dynasty lead over there. So most of my content will be Dynasty focused. And then the Devy Royale is Tuesday nights at 9:30. And you can check out our Patreon. We $3 a month, we'll get you the Devy Manifesto. We do rookie guides. We did a rookie preview guide. We did a rookie landing spot guide where we really went through the top rookies, looked at scheme fit, looked at the depth chart on the teams, and all of those things are available through the Patreon, as well as a Discord that you can join. But Tuesday nights 9:30 is when our show is, and that's where you can check out all your Devy stuff. We've already done 2023 previews for quarterbacks, running backs, and wide receivers. And so if you want to start to look at the rookies coming up next year, check out those over the last couple episodes that we've done. So we're already looking for 2023 in the Devy Royale.
Yeah, awesome. And anyone listening to the show, guys, we know already this 23 class is looking good. So get ahead of the game. Go over and check that out for sure. So, Jeff, one more time, thank you so much. And thanks, everybody listening at home as well. And as we cool off the hot seat for a little while, just a reminder, keep yourselves and your teams lit. And we'll see you next time.